We're taking a look at help file documentation in OpenPoint, and this will focus today just on help files for reports, but the same concept applies throughout the entire software application. So the first thing to note is these icons that are these little question marks, and so you'll see that little tooltip popped up that said help with report. So you'll see those sprinkled throughout the whole system, and in this case each one of these cards that you're seeing here represents a report, and so to get the specific help file documentation for that particular report, you just have to click on the question mark. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the CPR ledger report. Actually, I want this CPR ledger query one. So in this particular example, the help file documentation itself is actually in Excel, just like the report is as well. Other file formats are supported, and I will go and show an example of that in just a few moments here. But what we did here is we first did some documentation around the criteria selection that pops up when you first click on the Start button for a report. So it kind of provides, the screenshot of what it looks like, and then it gives us the name of the report, a description, and it goes through each of the different criteria and what those mean and how to work with those, including providing examples in some cases. So most reports should have some kind of indicator of the criteria data, if there is any. Notice also that there's a button here that says click to view video. So in this case we actually have I'll go ahead and click on that, we have a video associated to this particular one, and so I pulled that up and now it'll start playing that automatically. I just close that out. But that's just an example too of having some additional data on top of the original file itself. So in this case it was a video. We could also have other links inside of this file that go to other pieces of information about this, and it could even be websites, it could be whatever you want from there. So it could even be just the beginnings of like say a table of contents that branch off into other things, and maybe that's what the entire help file happens to be for a particular report or a particular part of the system. So this particular report has a second tab called CPR, and in this case what it's doing is it is showing a sample of the actual results of the report. So the highlighted section is what would normally come out of the report, and then to help the user of the system understand more about it, it's using Excel comments to then tell you more information about some of the columns. Some of them, the columns are probably pretty self-explanatory. Other ones might need some more information. In the case of this comment here and this comment, it's actually saying see below for more information. So it's telling us to look at the transaction types and the actions below. So let me scroll down a little bit, and you can see that information here. So it's giving us information about some of the data elements that can show up in the report itself. And so if you think about it, this concept is extremely flexible. So you can use it for any kind of referencing of the sample data that sample report data that would be useful, and it can be as detailed or as high level as you'd like it to be. So let me close that out, and we just saw an Excel example of documentation, and so I want to also take a look at a different type of format here. So let me go into the Age of Water Main report, and this one is in PowerPoint. So I'm going to click on the help button there, and it's going to pop up a PowerPoint. And so instead of having the grid example that we had in Excel, this one is going to be more of a slide deck format. It is using some sample data to describe some of what it's seeing there, and it's just kind of giving us some more information about the report. And this is just another example of how to lay stuff out in a report format, and depending on the type of report or the part of the system, different formats will make more or less sense. And so the other formats that are supported are Microsoft Word documents and also PDF documents. So it's nice that the system has reports, there are documentation for reports, but we want to take things a little bit further. So one of the things that we've learned is that a lot of times there's additional information about the system that you might want information on that applies to your utility. So how do you handle that in that case? Well, a lot of times there'll be separate documents that a utility will have that will describe certain processes or how they use a system in a certain way or how they use a report in a system, report in a certain way. We want to be able to let you add those types of documents to the system yourself. And so what we did is we allow all these help documentation files to be overridden with your own version of it. So let me show you an example here. So I've got an as-built report, and I'm going to click on it. So if I hit any question mark, it's going to go into the document. It's another Excel document. I kept this one pretty simple to start off with. So it just has a little bit of information about the report, and it's got the an example, but it doesn't really provide any other specific details about how you use it, because the thought was, well, it's going to be pretty particular to the utility and how they do things. So what you can do is override that. So let me show you what you have to do here. So the original report itself has a name. It's called report underscore as built worksheet. And so I created a new version that has an underscore and a 001. The 001 represents the client utility number. And so every utility will have their own separate number. And what happens is when those system sees those documents, and I'm going to put this out here. So I'm going to take this file, and I'm actually going to copy it out to the system, to OpenPoint, so it sees that it's out there. And so when it sees that there's one for that particular client that has the same name but has that 001 at the end of it, it's going to then use that instead. So in this version, if I click on it now, it actually has some additional information about how to use it. So I added this instructions section here so that additional information specifically for the client and how they want to use it can be added. And so it makes it so that there's a lot of additional customization of the documentation. Again, this is not just for reports, this is through any help files that you see throughout the system can all be overridden in exactly that same way.